Today, we're going to dig into something really strange that's happening right now. It's this weird paradox that sits at the heart of our economy, our technology, and, the very real human costs when the whole system seems to be failing a very specific group: men. So here's the central mystery we're talking about. If you look at the numbers, things seem fine. You see headlines about GDP growth, decent job numbers, but does it actually feel that way to you? For millions of people, the answer is a hard no. There's this gnawing anxiety, this feeling that no matter what the official charts say, you're just treading water, or maybe even falling behind. And believe it or not, this feeling actually has a name. It's called the Vibecession. The term was coined by an economist, Kyla Scanlon, and it perfectly captures this massive disconnect between the data and what we're all experiencing day to day. It's not about a recession in the technical sense. It's about the vibe, the feeling of being in one. And this slide really lays out that conflict so clearly. On one side, you have the data. GDP is growing, there are jobs. But on the other side, you have the feeling. And that feeling is driven by things like record high credit card debt. We're talking over $1 trillion now. It's about the absolutely crushing cost of housing. And this deep sense that even if you get a small raise, the game is still rigged. The vibe is just completely off. So what's throwing the vibe off so much? Well, a huge driver of this feeling is a force that is changing literally everything: artificial intelligence. This isn't just some tech story for nerds. It's an economic story, and it is kicking off a massive reshuffle in who wins and who loses. You've seen the headlines, right? They're everywhere, screaming about an AI job apocalypse. The fear, and it's a real one, is that AI is just going to come in and wipe out huge categories of jobs, especially those first rung on the ladder jobs that people need to get started. But is that really what's happening? Okay, this is probably one of the most important distinctions to get your head around. It's the difference between automation and augmentation. Automation is what everyone's scared of. A robot or an algorithm completely replaces a human to save money. But augmentation, that's totally different. That's about giving a human an AI tool that makes them better, faster, more valuable. One path is about removing the person, the other is about empowering them. And here's the proof of just how valuable that empowerment is. Check out this number. A global analysis found that workers who have AI skills are getting paid, on average, a 56% premium over their peers in the exact same jobs. I mean, wow, that is a massive signal from the market about where the future is heading. And a recent study from Stanford really shows how this is shaking out in the real world. For younger workers, aged 22 to 25 and jobs exposed to AI, they saw a 13% drop in employment. But for older workers, 35 and up, in those same exact jobs, they saw a 6 to 9% increase. So what's going on? It's not really about age, it's about approach. Experienced workers are using AI to augment their skills, while new workers trying to do the basic tasks are now competing directly against AI, and they're losing. Now, this kind of economic pressure, this tech disruption, it doesn't just happen on a spreadsheet. It creates real, deep fractures in society. And there's one group that seems to be feeling this strain more intensely than others. Research on social trends in China actually identified a group they call leftover men. Now, this study was focused on China, but the idea resonates globally. It describes men, often with lower incomes and less education, who feel left behind by all these economic shifts, leading to this profound sense of loneliness and pressure. They feel shut out from the kinds of opportunities their fathers or grandfathers just took for granted. And when that feeling of alienation gets taken to its most extreme, it can curdle into a really dark online identity, the incel, which stands for involuntary celibate. It's a term that now describes this whole subculture built around feeling unable to find a partner, which too often twists into deep resentment and hostility. But the history of this word is it's a tragedy. It wasn't born from hate. Back in 1997, it was created by a Canadian woman named Alana. She wanted to build a kind, inclusive online space for anyone, man or woman, who felt lonely. It was a support group. But after she stepped away, things changed. The term moved to different forums with less moderation. The community became almost entirely male, and over the next decade, it was hijacked and twisted into a banner for misogyny and sometimes even real-world violence. Something created for connection became a weapon. So what happens when you combine economic uncertainty with this profound social isolation? You get a devastating crisis of despair. And when you look at the numbers, they paint a really stark and, frankly, painful picture. This is often called the gender paradox of suicide, and it's so important to understand. While women actually report higher rates of suicidal thoughts and attempts, men die by suicide at a much, much higher rate. It is a clear and absolutely heartbreaking sign of a crisis in male mental health, one that we as a society are still really uncomfortable talking about. In this crisis is especially severe within another group of men, military veterans. Frighteningly, research from the RAND Corporation shows that the majority of veterans who take their own lives, 60%, hadn't even had contact with the VA healthcare system in the year before they died. They're completely isolated. And one of the biggest risk factors the research found? Economic hardship. You see how these threads, money, anxiety, despair, they're all tightly woven together. So, when we connect all these dots, from the economic anxiety of the vibe session, to the AI job reshuffle, to this profound loneliness and the resulting crisis of despair, we have to zoom out and ask a much, much bigger question. This quote from Alana, the woman who created the word incel, it's so powerful. It perfectly captures a theme that runs through this entire story. Good intentions leading to tragic, unforeseen consequences. Whether it's an economic system that creates growth but also anxiety, a technology that creates value but also displacement, or a support group that becomes a hate group. Which brings us to our final and maybe most uncomfortable question. Are these outcomes, the anxiety, the men left on the margins, the crises of despair, are these just bugs in the system that we can eventually patch and fix? Or are they features? Are they the predictable result of a system that is, in some unsettling way, working exactly as it was designed? That's a heavy question, and it's one worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me.